Hey there! So this short video is going to talk about different ways that you can prepare your speech. There are 4 different ways that you can prepare a speech, and those are manuscript, impromptu, memory, or extemporaneous. We're going to talk about them in that order. First off, a manuscript speech is a speech where you write out word for word everything you're going to be saying in your speech. A lot of people think this is the only way to create a speech, but in general, I find that a manuscript speech is not the best way to be able to respond to your audience and to be able to really engage them in what you're saying. Manuscript speeches are really good for when you have a very specific need to have specific and precise wording for your audience. For instance, every presidential address that you hear is a manuscript speech because those speeches are going to be heard over and over again by people all over the world. If you're giving a speech about how to create low-sodium pasta sauce, you're probably not going to need to have a manuscript speech because the wording of your speech is not nearly as important. And like I said, with a manuscript speech, it's really hard to bring those types of speeches to life and engage your audience. The second type of speech that you might give might be an impromptu speech. Now this is a little bit different than the other types of speeches I'm going to be talking about in this video, because with impromptu speaking, the way that you prepare a speech is not necessarily, it's not about a specific topic. You don't say, I'm going to be giving a speech today about low-sodium pasta sauce. You don't know that you're going to be speaking when you're going to be giving an impromptu speech. An impromptu speech is when somebody comes up to you and says, okay, in 2 minutes I'm going to need you to give a little talk about the project you've been working on, or something along those lines. Usually it's something work-related, or maybe you've gone to a funeral and somebody says, would you say a few words about the deceased? That type of thing. The way that you prepare for an impromptu type of speech is by learning a certain set of skills. You have a certain kind of knowledge. You learn the principles of how to speak well. You learn about what makes you nervous. You learn about how to organize a speech quickly, that type of thing. So it's not specifically prepping about a specific topic. You're actually preparing a way of speaking. You're learning more about the actual speaking process to be able to do it better, that type of thing. The problem with impromptu speaking often is that they're harder to follow. An impromptu speech is harder to follow because generally it's going to be less organized. You're going to have less precise wording. You're going to maybe say some types of odd things, and you're probably going to have less polish on an impromptu speech than you would on any other type of speech you would give. So that's some of the benefits and the detriments of impromptu. It takes less time for each individual speech you're preparing because you don't know you're going to be giving the speech, but you tend to have a less high quality type of speech you're going to give. The third type of way that you can prepare a speech is a memorized speech. Now a memorized speech is going to be one where you before the speech actually happens, you actually memorize the types of things, the words that you're going to be saying. Generally with a memorized speech, you're going to write out a manuscript and then you're going to memorize that manuscript. So you write out exactly what you want to say and then you memorize exactly what you want to say. So as you can guess, one of the detriments to this type of preparation is that it takes a lot longer to prepare. It's also easier to forget what you're going to plan to say, and generally a memorized speech is going to be less conversational because you're in your head, you're trying to think about what's that next line, what's that thing I have to say. So if you're focusing on that, you're not focusing on interacting with your audience. The fourth type of speech you might be giving would be an extemporaneous speech, and in this class we're going to be giving extemporaneous speeches exclusively. An extemporaneous speech is basically what you do is you write out an outline for your speech, and that's what you speak from. So you don't have word for word written down every single thing you're going to say. You don't write out a 5-paragraph essay and then read that for your audience. What you do instead is you write down that outline and then you practice going off of that outline, talking about what you might want to say. So, for instance, many of the class notes that I have for when I have in-class lectures are going to be extemporaneous style notes. You notice on that card that I didn't have anything written out word for word about what I was going to say. And so some of the things that I say in class or during lectures don't always come off as being the most polished version of what it could be. However, hopefully, when I deliver things in an extemporaneous way like I do, it comes off as being a more interesting way and a more interesting type of lecture that we have. So with extemporaneous speaking, you tend to have less precise wording than with a manuscript, but you do have more precise wording than with an impromptu speech because you have it more organized. You also tend to have a more organized speech than an impromptu speech. However, the big benefit to extemporaneous speaking is that you have a lot more freshness to what you're saying, and it tends to take less time to prepare an extemporaneous speech, at least in my experience. You also don't have to worry about when you're actually delivering an extemporaneous speech. You don't have to worry about what exact wording you're going to say or about forgetting different parts of your speech because you're going to have notes with an extemporaneous speech. And you're not going to have specific things that says, this is how I'm going to word this speech, this is how I'm going to word this speech, that type of thing. You also have the ability with that extemporaneous speech to interact more with your audience and to respond to what they're saying or to what the feedback that they're giving to you. So if your audience members are out there and they're looking at you like, what are you saying? I don't follow this at all. You know you need to slow down and maybe explain some more about what you're saying. Or if you say a word and your audience has been going along, yep, 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 and all of a sudden you say the word oregano and they have no idea what this spice is, then you might need to say, okay, so oregano is this spice, it kind of tastes like this, it smells like this is what you use it in. You have the ability to kind of add in and ad-lib a little bit more to respond to what your audience needs. But finally, you come off as much more natural and spontaneous in your delivery when you're giving an extemporaneous speech. And those three benefits, those three things about not having to worry as much, the ability to interact with your audience and respond to them, and being more natural and spontaneous are the reason that we learn how to give an extemporaneous speech. It is a little harder to learn how to do this. It's much easier to just write out word for word what you're going to say and then read it off your paper. However, in this class, we're trying to learn the principles of effective public speaking, and so that's what we're going to be doing.